Greetings, I'm Pillar Next Distinction Gladiator with more Pillar Loves Tabletop games with the final episode in the series before the tier list. Starcraft the board game, along with the expansion. Do not ask me how much the two of these together cost me. At the start of the game, you'll have one of 6 factions, and there are 2 factions for each of the races. There are Terrans, Zerg, and Protoss. You will take one of them, and you will take all the stuff you need for them. You will also receive a set of score tokens, which will give you a choice of planets to set up for building the map. Every planet's got its own little thing for it. There's conquest points, minerals, gas. There's a limit to how many figures you can have there in defense. And then on the attack, you can add 2 more to that. The expansion adds stuff that it's either air units only or ground units only, and provide access to special orders and such. But there are 18 different planets to end up with, making for a different galaxy each time. There are a number of ways to win the game. The first and foremost is achieve 15 conquest points. You earn conquest points by holding those locations during the getting conquest point step of the last phase of a round. When playing with a larger map, you have to go to like 20 points. Alternatively, if you're playing the base game or you're doing leadership cards, there's special victory conditions for stage 3. So, like for these guys, it's either control every area on 2 planets or control at least 6 areas containing resources. I believe if multiple people achieve their special victory conditions, it goes up with conquest points. So those do help. There's having the most conquest points when 2 the end draws nearer cards are revealed during the event phase. Those only show up in stage 3, so it takes a while. Finally, you can try to completely eliminate one side or the other. Eliminating a faction is very hard. You have to remove their every last base and figure, and you either have to be working with someone else, or they just have to be in a weak enough position that they can be wiped out so easily. But that's usually how the game goes. We'll talk about the event deck real quick. There are 3 stages. The event deck is determined at the start of the game and based on the number of players. The fewer the players, the smaller the deck. So there'll be stage 3 cards and stage 2, and stage 1. Events are drawn over the course of the game by having players be locked out of performing their orders. So the way orders work is players will go around placing orders on planets they occupy or are adjacent to, and when players go to resolve orders, they resolve one that's face up, or that's at the top of the stack. If you have orders left, but they're all locked underneath other players, you'll take an event card. It stays face down until the end step. There's also research orders, which get you more combat cards to work with, and chance to purchase technology from the technology deck. and also get you an event card. When we actually get to the end step, if you have any event cards, you'll decide which one to actually do. No matter how many event cards you have to pick one of them. So events are nice for getting like free, helpful stuff to kind of compensate for being screwed out of things, but if you get wiped off the map, it's not really helping you. So before the start of the game, players will get their Stage 1 leadership cards if they're playing the expansion. When it gets into Stage 2, players will pick their Stage 2 leadership. And when it gets into Stage 3, they'll pick one of their Stage 3 leadership. It's around this time where the event cards are super powerful, but at the same time the end draws near shows up. As soon as 2 of them are executed, the game ends. So actually setting the game up will determine the first player, choose factions. I went with the Terrans just to keep it simple. Gather the components, place conquest point track, depletion, resource and guard tokens. Guard tokens I'll be talking about later. Prepare the event deck, which I've already done. Not much of a deck because of 2 players. Choose Stage 1 leadership cards. Went with the special victory ones that give you your starting units, workers, and then setting up the galaxy. Each player will have 2 planets at random, and let's play no variant. And then the first player will play one, the second player will play another, and then once each player has played one, let's start with the last player. They'll place their second one. It has to be connected to something. And then starting with the first player, there's placing the access routes. So each player will have a set of 2. One will go on one planet, one will go on another. If there's ever a transport in this one, we flip it up. And once that's done, everybody will place their forces. As people are playing their planets, they have to choose one to drop their base on. Once the whole thing is set up, you can place your transport and your units as you wish. Separating the technology and combat cards, you'll get a hand of 6 unless you're the Terrans, in which case you get a hand of 8, because Terrans are cool like that. And then the game starts. So the first part of the round is planning, where each player will have 4 orders to place on the planet as they see fit. Orders can go on planets where you occupy or are adjacent to. Build lets you build units and other stuff as long as you have a base there. Or if you have a unit on a place without a base, you can use a build order and build a base there. Costs are paid with workers on your resources. You have home world resources and resources for the planets you currently occupy. Anything happens to the world, workers go away. Don't lose too many. There's research orders on places where you have a base. You get an event card, you get 3 more combat cards. You can then buy technology as you would buy anything else with workers on resources. Some cards are a set of 2 or more. 1 cost gets you all the cards. If they do not go into play, then they go into your deck. You shuffle them after purchase. And then finally there's mobilize. You play it on a world you want to go to. As long as you have a transport to that world, you go there. The limit of what you can send there is equal to the number of circles. If you're planning to start a combat, you can add 2 to that. If it shows dirt, you can only send land units. If it shows space, you can only send flying units, which you'll know because they have clear bases. Starting a battle, I'll be going over a little bit. And finally, there's special orders, which you'll get with your special order modules. Those do extra things. If you ever go to flip up an order and you can't or don't want to do it, you take an event card instead. If you have orders left and they're buried, you take an event card and skip your turn. Eventually all the orders will be cleared out, and that will be the end of that phase. And now for battles. You are limited to a single battle per mobilize order. And at the start there will be started battle effects, if you have them. Draw combat cards. The attacking player draws 3. The defending player draws 1. If the Protoss are defending, they draw 3. And after combat is over, the Zerg draw 1. The attacker designates skirmishes 1-to-1. If there are any leftover units, those are sporting units. They're assigned. Their bonus is shown on the card. It's a +1. So in order to attack, the attack type of the unit has to match the defense of the unit itself. Marines can attack air units as well. Firebats can only attack land. And then players will place cards. You'll place 1 card that actually shows, the units and the numbers. There's cards with plus signs called reinforcement cards. If you have the unit as the front or supporting in battle, it'll add those effects. You have the option to, instead of playing a card from your hand, play one off the top of the deck, but you do not get to reinforce it. So all the cards are played, they're resolved. So they're flipped up. Compare attack to defense. If it's equal to or higher, you eliminate it. 6 to 5 killed it, but 5 plus 1 beats the 6. And then here, 6 to 5 beats 5 to 4. If you ever have a unit that's not matching, it'll use the smaller numbers, which is greater chance of failure. And then, as long as I have survivors and they do not, I get to remain in the area. If not, I have to retreat. If they only have assist units in defense, the assist units have to retreat. But either way, that is the end of the battle. The cards are discarded, and the figures are placed in the area they would occupy. Eventually all the orders will be cleared, and we'll be at the regrouping phase. Bases that are occupied by enemies are destroyed. If you're holding on to the planetary resources, you lose them all. If you built a base on a new world, you will gain resources, provided you occupy the given spaces and no one else does. Or if nobody occupies the world and you have a base there, you'll get the whole thing. Retrieve workers. Workers that were on those resource cards, if you lose them, are gone. But otherwise, you'll get them back from your home world and your other resources. And choose leadership cards. If the stage has changed to 2 or 3, you will secretly pick from your leadership cards, play it face down, and then in player order reveal, you'll get special stuff. Some of them have like heroes, which are take a normal unit and mark it with a token. Gain conquest points. So we're getting the 2 here, getting the 1 here. Check for normal victory, somebody has 15 or more. Check for special victory, which is only if you took those cards. Play event cards. So you'll probably have anywhere from 1 to something cards. And you'll pick 1, set face down, toss the rest. reveal it, get whatever you get there. And then discard down to your hand limit. If you've been doing a lot of research in combat, your hand's been building up or shrinking. If you have more than your hand limit, then you'll discard down. If you have under, you won't just draw more to replace it though. And finally, pass the first player to the left. And the game just keeps going and going and going, and eventually somebody wins. Via normal victory, special victory, wiped off the map, or the end drew near. And that's it. That's Starcraft. Alrighty, for the last time, why do I love this game? Starcraft. It's, you know, I've had the video game, the PC game, and you know, having to do things real time can sometimes be really frustrating. I never got into multiplayer, but I like the pace of this one. You kind of have to think ahead on the orders. Like, you have to put your build down and then the move on top in order to do what you're trying to do. I like that there's a hard time limit to this game in the form of the event deck. I like that battles are limited so that you can be somewhat spread out a bit, and if they're trying to start a battle against you, they can only start the one battle they really think they can win. And then if you did the sneaky thing of keeping a mobilize order, you can counterattack. There's the whole deck builder aspect of the combat cards with the technology cards and all that. It's not like with dice rolling where you're sure to do decently most of the time. You have to be strategic because you're limited to a certain number of cards in hand, and not every card is going to show you the units you may or may not have in that battle. That's a particular aspect of strategy that I wish I could see more of. That your units are only as good as you've planned to make them good. And finally, it's just the Starcraft verse itself. I just like Starcraft as a as a universe. There's a lot of possibilities here. And every player playing a given faction at a different time, they might play it a different way, like focusing on building certain things or researching certain technologies, and then the expansion for this game is indispensable. It makes the game so much more interesting. Including leadership cards. I mean, sure, you can take the special victory card and have it feel like you're playing the old version again. Or you can do fun stuff like access to special orders, or choosing your starting planet tokens, or super building, or free nasty vehicles, or heroes, and all that. The leadership cards are cool. I said before, don't ask me the cost of this. By all means, feel free to go on eBay and see for yourself. The used board game market is a terrifying beast sometimes, but for me, this game was worth it. There has been a re-implementation, at least with orders and all that, of called Forbidden Stars, and it's based on the 40k universe. 40k, There's okay. There's some stuff I'm okay with for like Warhammer 40K, but Forbidden Stars just didn't do it for me. I'm sorry. I'm sure there are people who like the game a lot more. I know it's rated higher on BGG, but personally, I say no to Forbidden Stars. I'm very happy with Starcraft, even when it gets stupidly hard at times. This is a game that, as much as I love it, it's a hard game to teach sometimes. Yeah, there's the basics of orders and all that. But there's also special things in combat like cloaking and detector. And they've added some new stuff like collateral damage, sacrifice, mind control, recharge. But I think if people are willing to learn the game, just take the time, get to know it, they're going to have fun. This is not a nice game, obviously. As discussed in Citadels, where, there are people who wouldn't play that because, it's just kind of a mean game at times. This might also be a hard sell because it's about building yourself up and stepping everyone else down. But I think it can be a very rewarding experience with the right group of people. But yeah, that's StarCraft. I love it. I recommend it. Good luck getting a copy. Really good luck getting a copy of Brood War. And tier list soon. This has been Pillar Nexus, the Ancient Gladiator, with Pillar loves the ever-loving crap out of tabletop games. Hell yeah.